One of the most interesting headphones to come out last year was the AKG K371, a rather affordable pair of headphones with a well-tuned sound signature and excellent technical ability for the price. I reviewed the K371 back when my channel had probably less than 100 subscribers, I think it was. If you dive back into my early videos, then expect some dodgy camera work and bad audio, but do go and check out my K371 video. There'll be a link up here. Now, despite a string of issues I had with the build, I really liked the K371, and I still own a pair that I use quite regularly. Now, perhaps following along the lines of the Audio-Technica ATH M50X Bluetooth headphones, AKG has decided to launch a Bluetooth version of the K371. This seems like an odd choice for a headphone that is aimed at professionals, but we'll talk more about that in a bit. Now, in theory, if the K371 BT retains everything that is good about the original K371, but adds an option for Bluetooth connections, then that would give them a unique position in the market, as long as they do not lose anything from the OG in translation. Now, starting off with a headphone as good as the K371 as a base, what could possibly go wrong? Well, let's get into it. Hey guys, this is Noel and this is Wheezy Reviews, and each week I take a look at something audio related and let you know what I think, so if you're into that kind of thing, then make sure you subscribe. Now, on first look, the K371 BT retains all of the same design cues and features as the original, with a few key differences. So let's take a look at those now, and please be aware that my opinion on the feature set might not align exactly with yours. We might have different needs or priorities, so your conclusion might be different from mine. Now, I'm going to go over each of the features, and I'm also going to give my opinions on them. Now, first up is the weight. The weight is up 36 grams over the original K371. The OG weighed 257 grams versus 293 for the BT version. That is according to my kitchen scales. That's not a huge weight increase. It is noticeable, but it's not a big deal. The outer part of the headband retains this rubberized coating with a leather-like texture. I will bring the original back in here. Now, on the BT version, this feels a tiny bit softer than the original, and the AKG logo that's embossed in the top is a bit less defined. The headband padding is pretty much the same. If anything, it feels a little bit more plush, a little bit deeper on the BT, but that might be because my OG pair of K371 is about 6 months old now. The headband nukes are the same, they're still made of metal, and they still have the same folding mechanism, for better or worse, and more on that later. The ear cups are largely the same shape, however, on the Bluetooth version, they have a rougher texture on the back, and also the cups are deeper to accommodate the electronics. Unfortunately, the ear pads seem a little bit shallower and less plush than on the original, and that was immediately noticeable when putting them on the head. There's a lot less room for your ears in these new pads, and the result of this is that the long-term comfort is also decreased versus the original. And that's really my first point of complaint. AKG seems to have reduced the depth of the ear pads to compensate for the extra depth of the ear cups. The result is that the overall footprint of the ear cup and pad assembly is the same as the original, despite the extra depth of the cup. Now, I kind of understand why AKG have done this, but the deep pads of the original were one of the good things that made the K371 stand out from other monitoring headphones on the market. Like I said, I get why they did it, but I don't understand why they didn't find an alternative way of dealing with this instead of just making the pads smaller. That might not be a big deal to you, but I think it's just disappointing. Now, the K371 BT has the same ear cup float to allow them to fit the head snugly. However, they creak. I have no idea if that's going to get picked up by the microphone, but believe me, the K371 BT creak, the original ones don't. Why do they creak? And before anyone says that that's not a big deal, I say it is if the noise of that creaking gets transmitted into the ear cups and then into your ears. And yes, that's exactly what happens. You move your head, you hear the creak. It's just disappointing. The disc at the back of the cup has changed slightly versus the original. On the original, we had this recessed logo that was lined with a metallic leaf, and that's gone now with the BT. and you have a printed logo on that. The reason for this is that the left disc now houses a touchpad for the Bluetooth controls. You swipe up to increase the volume, down to decrease the volume, forwards or backwards to skip tracks, the usual sort of thing. However, these controls are quite hit and miss, and I found myself getting frustrated with them more than anything, to the point that I ended up reaching for my phone more often than not. Honestly, I would rather they had just used physical controls, and these are just a bit disappointing. On the left-hand ear cup, we have the power switch here, and also the status LED, which is right next to it. There, you can just about see that. And we also have a microphone over here, so that the K371BT can be used to take phone calls over Bluetooth. That's all good so far. In the middle, you might also be pleased to see that the K371BT has retained a mini XLR connector so that the K371BT can be used in wired mode. Included in the box is a 1.2 meter straight cable, a 3 meter straight cable, and a coiled cable, all of which use a 3.5mm TRS connector with a screw-on 1/4" adapter, which is good. You're also getting the same type of carrying pouch as you got with the original K371. Oh, and you're also getting your USB cable for charging. Now, this all sounds really good so far, except for some reason, AKG has seen fit to use a 4-pin mini XLR this time instead of the 3-pin on the original. Why? There's no mention in any of the specs that this has been wired for balanced connections, and all of the included cables have 3.5mm TRS connectors. Can these headphones be used balanced? I don't know. But what I do know is that my increasingly large collection of AKG mini XLR cables will not work with the K371BT. So there goes compatibility with the original K371, the K712 Pro, the DT1990, and my modified DT770 Pros, and many other headphones on the market. And yes, you can get a custom cable made for this, but finding a custom cable with a 4-pin mini XLR is going to be a little bit more difficult than finding a 3-pin cable. And personally, I'm used to being able to swap cables between all of these models to the point that, like I said, I even modded my DT770 Pro to use the same connector. This might not be a big deal for you, and okay, that's fine, but for me, I think it's just a bit disappointing, and I really don't understand this choice at all. However, if they have actually been wired for balance, then yeah, I totally get it. Some people are really going to like that. Although, why you would want to run these balanced, I really don't know. And also, why on this model and not on the original? Next up, on the left-hand cup, we have the USB connector for charging with the included USB cable. And yes, that is a micro USB connector in 2020. Micro USB. Where's the USB-C connector? I mean, look, I get it. Micro USB is ubiquitous at this point, and I'm sure some will argue that there is nothing wrong with the micro USB connector. But if you're releasing a product at a time when micro USB is being phased out in favor of USB-C, don't put a micro USB in your product. Pretty much every phone that's been released in the past couple of years, apart from Apple, of course, will have a USB-C connector. Everything with a USB port on should be using a USB-C connector at this point in time. Is this a deal breaker? Well, maybe it's not for you, and for me, maybe it's not. By itself, if that was the only thing wrong with this headphone. But I know that for a lot of people, this will be a deal breaker, and I think this is another misstep, and I don't understand this choice. It's not like a USB-C connector is that much more expensive than a micro USB. And it's just disappointing. We've talked about wired connectivity, so let's talk about wireless connectivity. And as I mentioned before, it does seem like an odd choice to make a headphone designed for professionals with Bluetooth. But on reflection, this could allow the Pro to have a single set of headphones to use in all scenarios. You could commute to work in the morning with the headphones operating over Bluetooth. You'll get into the studio, connect with a wired connection. You've got one pair of headphones with multiple roles. Sounds nice in theory, and actually it does sound like the sort of thing that I would be quite interested in. The K371 Bluetooth operates over Bluetooth 5, and they support SBC or AAC codecs. But that's it. There's no aptX, aptX HD, there's no LDAC. But okay, I get it. AAC is all that's needed because it's supported on the most devices, and SBC is supported on everything that supports Bluetooth audio. Also, it's true that SBC is much better than we give it credit for. However, SBC can be hit and miss, and whilst AAC is the best you can get on iOS, AAC performance is often a hit and miss experience on Android. What's more, Windows 10 doesn't support AAC, only SBC and aptX. Right, I know what you're thinking. The technical performance and tuning of the device has a far bigger impact on the sound quality than the Bluetooth codec, and you are absolutely correct. However, all other things being equal, aptX HD and LDAC are far superior codecs, and whilst none of these other codecs are true lossless, they do give you a greater quality than AAC or SBC. And I'm sure it's fine if you only listen to Spotify or iTunes, and for casual portable use. It's not a big deal. It's just disappointing. In terms of Bluetooth performance, I found I was able to watch Netflix on my Windows 10 PC over SBC with no noticeable lag, so that's a good plus point. And is that the first real positive thing I've said in this review? We're not off to a good start, are we? There's also no multi-device connectivity, which means that the K371BT cannot be connected via Bluetooth to your PC and your phone at the same time. So if you want to switch from one to the other, you have to disconnect from the one and then connect to the other. Not a big deal, you say? Okay, sure. But once you've gotten used to this feature, it's hard to go back to a device without it. Yeah, it's not a big deal. It's just disappointing. Now, can you be connected in wired mode to a computer, for example, and also be connected to Bluetooth at the same time? I mean, that would be quite useful. You can be working on your PC in wired mode and still be connected to Bluetooth to your phone to take calls. But no, that's not a feature you get with the K371BT. And I get it. It might not even be a feature that's even possible, although that seems unlikely. But again, it's not a big deal. It's just disappointing. Now, before we go further, I want to address my previous trials and tribulations with the original K371. Many of you might have seen my previous videos where I documented some build and QC issues with 4 separate K371 units in a row. I think that I was incredibly patient with AKG, and I'm not sure how many other people would go as far as to try 5 different units to find one that didn't have an issue without giving up. But I did eventually get that Unit 5 that was in good condition. And at the time, I felt that the price, tuning, and technical performance of the K371 were totally worth going through all of that effort for. And my efforts drew the attention of AKG Harman, who were able to investigate the issue and make changes to their build and QC process to stop that kind of thing from happening again. At the time, I noted some commenters questioned my integrity and tried to say that I must have damaged them for attention, and that's absolutely ridiculous. My channel had, 100 subscribers? Less? At the time, and I didn't really expect anyone to really watch my video. I was simply just documenting my experience. But as time went on, stories started to pop up online where other people experienced similar issues, particularly in the headband folding mechanism. See, I said we'd get back to this later. Whilst I still recommend the K371 for its sonic capability, and I'm sure AKG have resolved the early run build issues, I still hesitate for that adjustment mechanism. And yeah, mine is still in one piece and hasn't loosened off. And I know that for a lot of people, theirs is fine too, but I really question the long-term durability of such a hinge mechanism for something that is meant to be a professional workhorse headphone. I've seen many comments online from people saying that their hinges are loose, and I suspect that the issue is quite widespread. It's really, in my opinion, just not good design. I did talk about this in my update video earlier this week, so if you want to check that out, then go and click up in the thingy. And as I said in that video, I still recommend the K371 for its audio capability despite this, and I think it's a fantastic headphone. But before we get into the sound section for the K371BT, I have to say this. If you've been paying attention to this review so far, it has not been particularly positive. And whilst I may have been very patient with the OG K371, my patience has run dry. And it's not easy to write such a negative review. I don't enjoy trashing something for the sake of it. I genuinely wanted this to be a good product. A K371 with added Bluetooth for portable convenience, that sounds amazing to me. But I am sorry to say that I have already arranged a return for the K371BT. After this review, I'll be boxing these up and sending them back for a full refund, and not just for all of the previously mentioned gripes, but because, and I really cannot believe my luck, these ones are faulty. My very first thoughts on listening to the K371BT were that they were much, much warmer than the OG K371, but also quite muddy as well. So immediately, this is not the same sound signature as the original K371. I don't know what the intended sound signature was supposed to be. I would assume the same as the original K371. However, there's obviously something wrong with this pair of K371BT. I'm hearing a significant channel imbalance. There's a lot more bass energy on the right channel than the left, and also the left channel seems to be a little bit more shouty, which is a totally weird experience, hearing such a difference between the left and the right channels. It's probably best that I show you the measurements. I'll start off by showing you Unit 5, which is my current pair of OG K371. And before anyone says anything, these graphs are using the Mini DSP HEQ compensation, which is somewhat based on the Harman target. In theory, any headphone that matches the target should show as flat on this graph. Now, I know that people prefer the HPN curve as it's closer to other normal graphs, but as this is a Harman-tuned headphone, the HEQ compensation makes the most sense in this case. This is a fresh measurement I took specifically for this video. It serves as a benchmark for the K371BT, but also shows you that my Mini DSP ears are working. And let me address that point first. The Mini DSP ears are not industry standard or accurate and cannot be compared with other measurement rigs. It is also possible that the more shallow pads on the K371BT might affect how well they measure. However, that does not mean that these measurements are completely useless, especially as they are being used to confirm what is being heard. No one should be using these measurements or any others saying, oh, this measures like X, therefore it sounds like X. That's not the point. The point is to make sure that the unit we're looking at is not broken. This is very clearly broken. This is just so disappointing. I really don't know what else to say at this point. After all the issues I've had with the OG K371, I'm really not all that motivated to go through all of that warranty process again for what is, in my opinion, a rather mediocre Bluetooth headphone. Put aside the issues with the sound, let's assume that they sound exactly like the original K371 and that they don't have this broken channel imbalance thing. Would I be happy with the K371BT? And I'm sorry to say that my answer is still no. In terms of their feature set, they're simply quite meh. Sure, most of the gripes I previously mentioned are not deal breakers on their own, but they add up to a big disappointment as a whole. Now, if you want a wireless K371, then personally I would go and buy the original K371 and something like a FiiO BTR3, and it will cost less and have more features. Now, perhaps none of the gripes that I previously mentioned are a big deal for you, and assuming that a non-broken unit of K371BT sounds like the original, then yeah, I guess this could work for you. But as far as I'm concerned, the K371BT is just disappointing and I'm done. And with that, that's kind of it. I've really got nothing else to say. I've tried to be as fair as possible during this review, and I'm not going to tell you how to feel or what to do with your money, but this is just my experience and these are my feelings, and with that, I'm out. Okay, I hope you all found this video useful, and thank you so much to the patrons and all those who watch my videos, who like, subscribe, and share. And again, thank you so much for watching, and until next time, have a good one.